Aidy Bryant is the star and executive producer of Shrill, a fabulous show on Hulu that has just been renewed for a third season after airing its critically acclaimed second season. I'm Tony Ruiz with Gold Derby. And Aidy, the transition from season 1 to season 2, did you feel more pressure, less pressure? Was it different in any way in planning for season 2?
Oh gosh. I think I was just super, super excited to get a chance to do it all again because we didn't make a pilot. We just turned in a script and went straight to series. And it was sort of this avalanche of okay, we're making a television show, and we never got to regroup and be okay, how could we do this better? What systems can we get in place to, divide the work and make it a healthy workload or any of those things? And also just for me, figuring out, okay, when am I acting? When am I writing? When am I producing? When am I doing all three? And how can I juggle those? I feel like the second season, I had such a better sense of that. And also our team, we just knew how to move, So it was sort of a dream scenario to get to do it all again.
Well, and you talk about those three roles that you have. Is there one that you feel most comfortable in, and is there one that you feel least comfortable in?
Oh gosh, it's funny because I feel like some days I feel most comfortable as an actor, other days I feel most comfortable as a producer, other days I'm I wish I was just writing. But I also, I feel like I'm always learning, and producing especially, I feel like I've gone from 0 to 150 miles per hour. Because even at SNL, we produce our own sketches and make choices and meet with production designers. And so this is that on a whole nother scale. And so I don't know, I'm getting more comfortable being a producer. I'm probably most comfortable on camera. But I don't know, it's different day to day.
So one of the things with this second season that I found really interesting is that Annie is definitely somebody we root for and somebody that we love, but she's also not flawless. She makes mistakes. She makes sometimes bad mistakes. Was that always important to make her not just the protagonist, but to make her a well-rounded protagonist?
Yeah, I mean, I have never had the good fortune of meeting a perfect person. So I guess it just feels more real. And also I think part of what we're portraying is a young woman who has sort of crafted her entire personality around pleasing others, being palatable in a way, in an effort to camouflage her body flaws or what she perceives as body flaws. And so, this really is someone who in some ways is still doesn't know herself and who she actually is versus kind of who she's almost like this monster she's created to be pleasant and good and a good girl and get the pats on the head. Who is she underneath that? And what does she actually want beyond just being to lose 10 pounds or to whatever, to have a more wide world.
Well, and the world that she inhabits is so, I think one of the strengths of the show is that the atmosphere is so diverse without ever feeling like it's shining a light on, oh, look at how diverse we are. I think specifically with some of the queer characters. I mean, this is a show that has so many different quote unquote types, but it never feels that way. How do you walk that balance of, being this representational show without ever making it feel like, oh, here's the message we're trying to portray? Because not a lot of shows can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we really just try to approach it from an authentic place. And I guess I never feel like we go into casting looking to check a box. We're always looking for the best performer. And also I think we're looking to reflect what is the modern world of a, 20-something woman. It's, I don't know. I've always, it's just you want to reflect the world that you exist in. And of course, she's surrounded by queer people and people of color, and that is, that's my reality, and I think many others, and so it just only makes sense. And I mean, even much of the casting, it's like I'm just casting my friends who I think are incredible comedians, So there's never, I don't know, we're never trying to like represent as much as we just want really good performers.
Well, one of those really good performers is Luca, who is somebody who I was not familiar with, and he just inhabits that role of Ryan so beautifully. Talk about the working relationship you two have, because it's so loving and tender and yet fraught at the same time. I mean, how did that casting come about?
Yeah, it's interesting because his character, it is sort of a contentious character in a lot of ways, where he's definitely the one that people have the most opinions about. And people, it's so funny. I either have people tell me like, you got to get rid of him, we hate him, or I love him, and I think it's kind of telling about who they are as people. But I love working with Luca. I actually had met him. We had worked on a short film together. And so then when people were auditioning, we saw a lot of great people. But, he and I just had like a natural rhythm. And we've worked really hard together. He and I probably like did the most rehearsal and just running our lines together and working before we would shoot. And having lots of conversations about like, what does he want versus what I want. And, I think that relationship in particular on the show is really relatable to so many young women, where it's like, if you have put all your hopes and possibilities for your future onto one person, it's really hard to truly let them go, especially if they are willing to change for you and they are willing to try and step up. But is that really enough? And ultimately, I think part of what the second season about is that they love each other, that they really are in love. That's not the problem. The problem is they're two different people, and it's just not a match. And ultimately, she has to ask herself, is affection and love enough? Or do I want someone who can truly challenge me and push me forward the way I push them? And, that's kind of what the last episode.
One of the things that I always like to ask, particularly when somebody's in a position of being the producer and not just the actor and also being involved in the writing, is do you have a favorite episode of the season? The one where like everything clicked?
Oh my gosh. It's really like asking like, who's your favorite child? I have different ones for different reasons. Uh-oh.
No, I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Okay, sorry. Okay, I have different ones for different reasons. I guess it's really tough to say. I really liked the 7th episode, which was where John Cameron Mitchell has this party at his house, my boss, and he has a performance. And I think it's a real like kind of breaking point in the season relationship wise. But I also really love, okay, sorry, I'm picking two. I'm fully cheating. I also loved the 6th episode, which was about this women's kind of empowerment business conference. And I was really proud of the way we sort of walked the line between both kind of examining what sucks about some of that stuff, but also and how it can be kind of manipulative and sort of commerce based, but also at the same time looking at the fact that like for some women that's their entry point into feminism or self-worth, and that can be really moving for them, and finding a space to hold both of those ideas at the same time. And I also just think the episode's very funny. So it's like, I like the combo of high and low. That feels very like our show to me.
Well, and yeah, one of the I had hoped that you would have said that the 6th episode, because I think that one just kind of blew me away. Not just for all the reasons you said, but you have, Vanessa Bayer just, killing it as this kind of like leader who is just kind of dead behind the eyes, and this kind of, and I believe that's the episode that Natasha Lyonne directed too.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Yeah.
So how did you bring those two into the mix?
I mean, very selfishly, because they're both friends of mine, basically. You know, Vanessa, I used to perform with in Chicago before we were both hired to SNL. And then, and so, you know, we did our time at SNL together. And since she's left the show, I've been kind of thinking like, oh, I would love to get her on. And then, you know, Natasha, I met early in my time at SNL, and we just really clicked. And so, you know, as she's started directing more, I've been like, oh, I would love to get her in here. And it just worked out. and I think it was a really kind of happy accident that her schedule allowed her to direct that episode, because she is so good at handling kind of ideas about like almost like dysphoria and confusion and trying to push through that kind of like disorientation. And I think that's a lot of what that episode is about, is like trying to find something to grab onto, but there's so many kind of wonky ideas floating around. And I think she really captured that, and also just kept equal parts like humor and story.
Yeah, and you had mentioned John Cameron Mitchell earlier, and the relationship there between Annie and her boss is something that I would describe as slowly evolving. What do you see as the potential for that relationship going forward?
Yeah, I would say Annie and her boss's relationship is one of my favorites on the show, and John Cameron Mitchell is incredible. And I guess part of what I love about it is that these two, I'm trying to put it best into words, but I guess it's both like they need each other and they can't stand each other, but they love each other and they encourage each other to grow, which is like, there's just a lot of layers to play there. And I think John and I have like a real chemistry for that. And yeah, I think it is evolving. I think they're going to, I hope they get to a place where they can kind of coexist and bring out the best in each other. And I think that's part of what happens in episode 6, is they kind of have this reckoning where he finally is able to look at her as a little bit of a peer and try, and even also to be able to mentor her in that same moment is, I think, a real step forward for them. They're listening for the first time, both of them.
It feels very real. Now that you have a third season, have you already started planning the third season? Where are you in the development and process, and can you give us any tidbits of where you want to take Annie and these characters?
Yeah, well, so we literally start our writer's room for season 3 via Zoom on Monday. And so we're pretty excited about that. And so, yeah, we've kind of just been in those early planning stages where Lindy, the author of the book, and Allie Rushfield, our showrunner, and I are kind of having phone calls, planning, talking about how do we have a Zoom room and how do we make it creative, but also humane, so people don't have to sit in front of their computers for 9 hours or something. So, you know, there's some planning in that way going on. And we're also talking story-wise. But, you know, I think part of what we've set up at the very, you know, last 5 minutes of season 2 is that Annie is really about to get out there into the world. And she's going to have to kind of test all the things she's learned now. You know, now she's been able to be kind of more confident and even like sexually confident and all these things. And how do you, you know, get out into the dating pool in an extremely vulnerable way to put yourself out there? How can you hold those same confidences as you go through that? So I think that'll be the big test. And I kind of like the idea of exploring that world. And yeah, letting her, she's been in kind of a very single zone with one person for a long time, even though there have been other people in the mix. And now I think the world is her oyster.
Well, we certainly can't wait to see what happens with that. Everybody go to goldderby.com. make your predictions for the Emmys and stay tuned for more interviews throughout the season. Aidy, congratulations. Can't wait for season 3. Thanks so much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks so much for talking with me.